I'm having so many conversations with people at the moment who really understandably are experiencing feelings of overwhelm. So there's been a recent announcement that in the UK it's unlikely that anything much is going to change until well into March. So for parents and carers at home with children, that might mean the continuation of having them there 24/7, but not just that, but also, you know, managing their emotional needs, their learning needs, all that kind of stuff. So that can definitely feel and be overwhelming. And then there's just, I don't know, lots of conversations I'm having with people who are seeing the daily figures on what's happening with the pandemic, who interestingly also are experiencing overwhelm from the complete just not knowing of everything, the uncertainty, not knowing, should I book a holiday this year? Will I be able to do this? Will this happen? Won't that happen? And of course, lots of uncertainty about work and jobs and careers and businesses. So it's hardly surprising that overwhelm is something that many people are going through kind of waves of, you know, sort of a big wave of overwhelm and then maybe feeling kind of okay again, and then just that one thing they see, one thought that comes into their heads, and they back up the overwhelm roller coaster. So, you know, goodness me, doesn't it ever make sense? And what often happens when we're in a state of overwhelm is suddenly two things happen. Generally what happens first of all with overwhelm is it makes us feel quite tight and tense and scattered and jumping from kind of one thing to another, a bit like not knowing which fire to put out first of all. So sometimes when we're feeling overwhelmed, we start making millions of plans, trying to have a solution for everything, getting very stuck in kind of what ifs. Okay, what if this happens? Okay, so I can do this, I can do that. And then of course we get very tight and very tense. So we get stuck in the part of our body that's very much to do with fight, flight. So it, you know, our system perceives then that there's some major immediate threat to our life. That's what that part of overwhelm feels like. And certainly again, you know, then things like our partners, even our pets, definitely our children, maybe people we're working with, we're on a call with, or anything and everyone then can start to feel like too much, start to irritate us, bug us, annoy us, and we get quite reactive. Or the other thing that can happen with this kind of stuck fight flight response to overwhelm is that we turn this kind of frustration and hot energy not out towards others but towards ourselves. So we try and work everything out and, you know, put all the fires out, and then we feel like we're failing. And so this tightness and this overwhelm, we then turn in on ourselves, and we start either pushing ourselves harder or being very critical towards ourselves, maybe beating ourselves up and, you know, saying to ourselves, oh, you know, you don't have a right to feel like this, because there's people much worse off than you, and, you know, you're safe and you have somewhere to live and you have, you know, some money, and then we start turning in on ourselves. So all of that comes from this big overwhelm, which creates this big hot energy inside of ourselves, again, you know, in the middle of our body here, and it either goes out or it goes in, or a bit of both. And it's absolutely exhausting and a really hard way to go through life. Then what often happens is when we've been stuck in this big, hot, hard overwhelm here for quite some time, is our whole system gets exhausted by it, and then it crashes down to the lower part of our body, which is the low energy part, and we can end up feeling really miserable, really negative, really down. We're just kind of having to drag ourselves around. There doesn't seem any point to anything. We start losing, focus on anything much, caring less about anything. And again, that can be ourselves, that can be work that we need to do, it can be towards our husbands, it can just be towards life in general. And then it becomes really hard also to support our emotional, mental and physical health. So too much stuck here, we might go for lots of runs and lots of energetic things, but actually we're not really supporting our mental, physical and emotional health being stuck here. And also not if we've crashed down to the low energy. Now, the thing is that we can't control this happening. Once we're stuck in either state, it's not because we failed at anything, it's just because our systems, that's how they react. They react to what feels like too much coming in by putting us into fight flight or putting us into shutdown. So it's not a failing in us or a weakness or any of those things we might start thinking about ourselves, and we haven't pushed hard enough or all that stuff that you read everywhere. Those things aren't true, actually. It's just our internal body system, our nervous system, just perceiving that we're under threat. So it's doing what it can to kind of save us, because it can't think and work stuff out, because it's not a brain, it's just a system in our bodies that's very brilliant. And when it feels like there's too much, it will just go into survival protection mode. So what can we do? What can we do? Because yes, with overwhelm tends to then come this frustration and anger, and then can come this real low mood and sadness, which can look like procrastination. So these states of overwhelm can look and feel, and we might say to ourselves, I keep putting things off all the time, and then give ourselves a hard time about that as well, and then that adds to our overwhelm. So what's some simple things that we can do? Well, we can forget thinking ourselves out of overwhelm. We really do need to, as you probably hear me say so often, we need to address it through our bodies, because the thinking brain is not actually very strong. We think it is, but it really isn't. It's very teeny weeny in its strength. So I always talk about this being like a shrimp, and the rest of us, the rest of our brain and the rest of our body being like a giant whale. And the giant whale is where the strong beliefs that we have about, well, I'm failing, or life is going to be a complete disaster if I don't manage to do this, or if this doesn't change. The big beliefs are all in here about life and ourselves, and how genuinely comfortable and okay we feel about what's going on in the world, and how safe and calm we feel. That's in here, it's not up here. So the shrimp can't really help us, but the whale can. And part of the whale part of us is in our bodies. So for overwhelm, it's so necessary to do simple things all through the day to help the body feel safe. So sometimes that is actually getting the body on the ground. So if you're working from home, this should be a lot easier than if you're working in an office. So lying on the ground sometimes, I do that. If I've not been able to get myself out of this big stuck state any other way, I will just go lie on the ground, or at least sit on the ground, because the body, when it has contact with a hard surface, it starts settling a bit and feeling a bit safer. And when you're sitting or lying on the ground, if your body feels comfortable with it, one hand on your heart, one hand on your stomach, and then just trying to send the air down your body towards your stomach if you can. So pulling air up through your nose, sliding it down the inside of your body, slowly breathing out of your mouth. Now you've probably heard before, well, it's made me go all calm and floaty now, that, you know, if you can do the breath through your nose and imagine it flowing down into your stomach, and then when you then blow out through your mouth and release the breath out, if you can make that breath a little bit longer, great. If you can't, don't worry, just do the best you can. And if you can't get to lie on the floor, then leaning back against a hard wall is another good way to do it, because when we're feeling overwhelmed, our body has got very, very stuck and it feels super unsafe. So it's sending all this information up to the brain saying, emergency, emergency, emergency. So our brain starts going, whoa, emergency, emergency. Whereas when we actually work on calming the body and bringing the body back to some level of feeling grounded and safe, then the brain comes out of emergency state and the overwhelm comes down a bit. So anything you can do along those lines. I sometimes, if I can't lay on the floor or sit on the floor or lean against a wall, I wouldn't go, well, no, I couldn't do it very well now. Then I find, and everyone's body is different, but for me, putting my hands on the top of my head or at the back of my head and letting my head lean back into it, and then just putting some weight down my back, and again, same kind of breathing. Helps me really relax. Another lovely one is gently. Again, you always need to go slowly and gently because everyone's body likes and doesn't like different things. But when you put your hands around your own face, and that literally takes just a few minutes, doesn't it? Not even minutes, moments. Or sometimes I might put a hand, you know, quite firmly on my forehead and one on my heart or one on my stomach. Because what happens in those moments is we actually connect with our bodies. When we're feeling overwhelmed, we are very cut off from our body, and we're either out there imagining all the fights we need to fight, or we're completely just shut down and cut off from everything. So any gentle reconnection with our body so we can actually notice ourselves again just starts bringing that settling in. So see what you can manage to do. See what you can find that your body likes. Let me know maybe. And just know that, as I said, there's nothing wrong fundamentally with any of us. But sometimes our whole system just has too much to deal with. So taking overwhelm seriously is very, very important, because it kind of stacks up and stacks up and stacks up. And the more we ignore it, the worse it will get. And it's such a big kind of withdrawal from our emotional and physical energy banks that then, of course, it lowers our immunity, and we sure do need our immunity right now. So a little moment, however, wherever you can do it, regularly done throughout the day. You can also do these things in bed at night. Honestly, this is how I live my life, which is part of the reason why now I rarely experience any kind of overwhelm at all. So I hope that this is useful to you, and that you're able to just have a little bit of a go, a little bit of an explore of what works for you, and that it helps you feel less overwhelmed, more present, and able to just carry on in your daily life, and hopefully also get some enjoyment from it. So take care of yourselves, and I'll be with you again soon.